Hey folks, welcome back for another episode of Director's Commentary for One with Wolfpack Football. Since this is the second episode of Director's Commentary, obviously we are covering the second episode ever of the show. So far, it's been a lot of fun to revisit some of these moments, both from a growth perspective and from an enjoyment perspective. And I hope you're getting something out of it too. This episode is entitled Urgency, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, so this is our first episode that is a game episode for the show. So I felt it was important to kind of start off with some fun practice, non-camp elements to get ready for the first game of the season. Love a good grass shot. So the names, the titles of each of these episodes are based on, there's that terrible lighting shot I talked about last time. So the titles of these episodes are based on these pillars that Coach Doran and his staff instill with their program and in their players. Pillars that are values to their program. So for this one, we're talking about urgency. So I wanted to have kind of a thematic through line, if you will, of all the episodes I make for each season. And one of the ways to do that is to employ these kind of themes. And that helps me out a ton, because what I can do is I can then dedicate a specific episode to that theme. So obviously for this one, we're talking about urgency. So a lot of the questions I formulate have to do with urgency. What is it? How important is it? Personally, as well as to how it relates to the program, how it relates to things on the field. And so every time I come up with questions, I ask coaches, players about urgency. Sometimes it's as simple as, what does urgency mean to you? Sometimes it's more vague. And that comes with practice. And so it's kind of wild. I'm looking back at this. Like I said, this is the first episode we made that features game footage, which will be coming up, and I learned a very valuable lesson doing that as well. There's my name. In the background of these images, you see like wolves. That wolf footage was shot at, I want to say the name is, I can't remember the name, but sorry. There is a wolf dog sanctuary out in Black Mountain, North Carolina. Back in 2012, I went out there to capture footage of these wolf dogs that they have, and they just have they have actual wolves. They have wolf hybrids, and basically they're collected from folks who think it's cool to own a wolf or to own a wild animal, and then they get in trouble for it because they don't know how to handle this animal, and they go to this sanctuary where this woman takes care of them and does her best. It's really cool. Some of them are very tame. You can go up and pet them, and they're very fluffy, and some are just still wild animals. So this is how I start off my Mondays of each week. I go to a press conference. I film Coach talking to the press. I don't really ask questions. I let the professional journalists do that, and I just steal their answers. But now this is our first occurrence in Coach Doran's office. So for each of these episodes throughout now, we have a small amount of footage concerning the theme of the episode in that darkly lit dramatic setup that I don't really like. But the other rest of it is filmed in his office. And he's got a very nice office. Good view, good windows. A lot of decorations, which is very helpful for like visual stimulation. So here we have Coach George Barlow. Coach Barlow was nervous for this interview. I don't know why. A lot of assistant coaches kind of get nervous for these interviews, mainly because they're just not used to it. Their comfort level is being a coach. When a camera's around, much like the rest of us, sometimes we just get a little anxious, a little nervous. Sometimes that means we ramble. Sometimes that means we talk fast. Sometimes that means we fidget. Sometimes it means we clam up. Fortunately for Coach Barlow, the way he exhibited kind of this energy was to talk a lot and give us some really, really good answers.
If they run in the stands, go run with them and don't look back. Okay, we got to be on top of routes. Got a chance to get the ball. Let's go. Okay, just don't relax. All right.
So when I'm cutting together like mic'd up segments, I try not to include too much playbook jargon. Because the coaches don't want that out there. It's kind of a free scouting report to their opponent. Also, to the lay person who isn't a coach watching this, they don't know what that means. They don't know what that stuff means. So stuff when he talks about effort, when he talks about looking where you need to look, physicality, that stuff I feel like is important because anybody can kind of understand what they're referring to here. I think this footage looks really good. I love the reds. Red is a tough color to get right on TV. Something with the spectrum level, sometimes it just looks oversaturated or kind of blown out. So it's really nice to get these nice, clean red, easily distinguishable colors. Now, because we're filming in with different cameras, it's kind of hard to match the reds sometimes. And a lot of times it takes a lot of effort to try and match them exactly. For me, at this point, I'm not a colorist. This was, 7 years ago, something like that. So I've improved a little bit, I think. But trying to match colors was always a struggle for me from these different cameras. It also wasn't just me filming. We have a team of production assistants that helps out as well. And around this time, we also had our first kind of like content creators on staff at NC State. Here's some more bad lighting. To be fair, the bad lighting is my fault. This is totally on me. I just needed to do a better job of understanding just lighting itself. A lot of it had to do with the resources too. This weird combination of having to provide some of my own equipment and also using equipment that already existed at NC State, trying to find a good balance of what equipment is right to use, because it's not just me who would use this stuff. Other people would use it too. So that consistency of trying to use different things to achieve the same look gets kind of complicated. The music that goes on at practice is always it's always interesting to see how the players receive it. They always do a throwback Thursday on Thursdays. They played some old school hits. Wednesdays, a lot of the coaches want hard rock. By a lot of the coaches, I usually mean Coach Dorn. Some of the players aren't into it, and that's totally cool. Well, this is Jalen Samuels. Just a really, not as a good player, good person, did a really great job with being on camera, did a really great job being mic'd up. The one cool thing is a lot of these players that get mic'd up, they'll tell me, I don't really talk a lot. And I say, that's okay, because it's not necessarily about them talking. It's also about the people around them talking. So when the rest of the players find out somebody's mic'd up, they're going to hassle him. And most of the time it is very entertaining. So I enjoy going through that stuff. I probably film, practices last about 2 hours. I'm filming most of that time. The stuff that ends up in the show, totally 4 or 5 minutes. It's not that much at all. I love hearing the sounds of hands on clothes and pads. Like it's that rustling that makes, for me, I think it makes it feel like you're there, like you can hear everything that's going on.
In my first week here, I tore my ACL. That first was a little tough, I really wanted to play.
So now we're transitioning to another player. I won't talk about the lighting anymore, just because I think it's bad. So trying to figure out how to transition from one interview to another was tricky at first, because in my head, I was thinking before we shot anything, before I planned out this season, how many people do I interview for each episode? What's the right balance? And then in post-production, how do you cut it all together? Do you interweave everything, or do you kind of segment stuff where you're like, okay, this is about a coach, then this next part is about a player, and this next part is about something else. But for this episode, I was kind of going back and forth to try and find this balance of what I wanted to do. And that's a lot of fun, is figuring out your own flow, is seeing what kind of story is within all the stuff that you're capturing. That track in the background, that track, oh, I love this track playing. It's a song called Brooklyn by the Youngblood Brass Band. Finding the right music for the show was a lot of fun. Sometimes I would have a lot of fun with it, put in something maybe a little cheeky. Most of the time, I just try to find songs that fit the particular vibe, not even necessarily well-known songs, because that wasn't the point. Oh, this bit. This is one of my favorite memories of my entire run, running the show. It's George McDonald. He's a coach at the University of Illinois right now.
You gonna get me on camera, roll it. That's crazy.
So Jalen dropped a bunch of punts in special teams practice. So now he's got to roll. That's the punishment. I don't know if him talking and grunting was for my benefit, or if he really felt like he needed to say it.
Hold on, let me take a little break.
Basically, he has to roll 100 yards. Can you imagine how hard it is to roll 100 yards and stay in a straight line? I don't know how, man. I wasn't even sure what I was filming when this was happening. I was constantly thinking about, okay, what's my angle? What do I do? But if I remember correctly, I do like the way this segment cuts out. Something about it. I think I mentioned in the first commentary that going wide to convey comedy really is a good move, because you get the body language, and I think that was a good example of it. I'm also a big fan of framing on the thirds, dividing my frame into thirds, both horizontally and vertically. So framing him on the lower third and the right third, aesthetically, I thought was a cool choice. Before the team runs out for every game, there's usually a couple minutes of just contemplative silence, where they turn off all the lights except for a red light that is on, kind of get them in the mode. So yeah, this first game of the show, first game of the 2017 season against South Carolina in Charlotte at the Bank of America Stadium, where the Carolina Panthers play. A lot of times I like to let a coach's speech play out, but if it ever looks over-edited, or if there's a lot of B-roll over it, the chances are I've cut out a lot of curse words. Because this is for TV, folks. We'll get an FCC fine.
I'm excited to play my first game. They really showed me that if I really wanted to play here as a true freshman, I can work for it. But
I promise interview lighting gets better as I film more.
I just want to do me. I don't want to do too much. You know what I mean?
Love a good slow motion shot.
Get out my game, so I'm just on Saturday.
Great colors there. Great colors. So this was my first game filming for the show, so I had to worry about, or not worry, I just had to plan who was going to shoot what. Now, I'm not like in charge of the entire camera crew, because I work with folks who work at NC State. I do not work for NC State. So we have to kind of work together to see what's the best idea, what's the best game plan in order to capture what we all need to capture and work together. So me figuring out how to edit a game like this, every game is different. So when the first play of the game is a South Carolina kickoff return for a touchdown, I'm thinking, okay, how the heck do I do this? So I thought, let's just go ahead and show that touchdown without any music or sound, or without any music or additional sound. That way we're setting up the fact that, like, okay, State's behind, let's go. And then we start cutting it up. Have a little upbeat music, some good plays. So in this, so for this game, we've got a camera inside the bench area where the coaches and players are. We've got a camera on the sideline filming the action. That's me. Then we have another camera in the kind of the end zone areas, and yet another camera shooting a very high angle shot of the entire play. So I believe for this game we have 4 different camera angles trying to cut back and forth between the two. Sometimes a lot of plays can run together. And so one of the things I really try to do with game edits is to keep it dynamic as possible. So taking opportunities to show a bunch of highlights back to back to back to back to back, just to make it interesting, and then break it up with just some kind of non-game stuff. So like just like slow motion shots like that, or shots when we cut to stuff in the bench of players talking or celebrating. That's a good way to. That's Naheem Hines, plays for the Bills now. So like that shot there, just the coaches talking, can't really hear what they're saying, but just to have a little bit of variety as opposed to just highlight after highlight after highlight. I felt like it was important. Most of the music you'll hear throughout all 3 seasons of this show is done by J-Mac, the producer. He also composed the main theme of the show. He is a college buddy of mine. We were both members of the drum line at NC State when we were both there. Speaking of which, there's a marching band. Stuff in the locker room at halftime is always a lot of fun because it's very chaotic. There can be a lot of coaches talking at the same time. And both offense and defense are in the same room. They're just separated. So if they're ever talking at the same time, sometimes it's hard to hear. But fortunate enough, we're able to hear what's going on here. A lot of the stuff that coaches talk about in halftime stuff it's half game plan logistics. Like, okay, we got to do this, we got to do that. And the rest of the stuff is motivational. It's Coach Henry. I think, yeah, he's the defensive coordinator at University of Illinois now. He was one of my favorite coaches to film throughout his time at State. Just very emotional, motivational. He was also younger, so that helped, I think, the students connect with him a little bit more.
I know how good this team is. All you got to do is bring it out of you. Just bring it out of you, man. You understand that?
Sometimes I get caught watching this. I'm just like listening, you know.
Finish.
Just caught up in the moment. So this game ends up in a loss, which, I mean, if you're watching this and you didn't know that, I'm sorry, but it's not a spoiler. It's history. So we lost this game. Despite best efforts, they played really well. But for me personally, I'm bummed that the team I'm covering doesn't win. But from a production side, I feel like this might have been a really good thing to happen to the show early on, because that gave me a good idea as, like, how do I handle that? Like, how do I handle showcasing a loss despite all these awesome plays? Man, that was a great grab. And what do you do? Like, what do you show? Because normally, if a team loses, that team's not going to post highlights of the game because of the end result. This is a loss. But one of the things I tried to really instill and really try to communicate was that just because you lose doesn't mean it's the last play of the game here. especially the way it ends, it really ends on the last play. Like, why wouldn't you show everything that happened? Like, it was a good game. And I really wanted to just be real. I wanted this show to be authentic. I wanted it to be real. I wanted to show everything that was going on. I wanted people to see how hard these players and coaches take losses, because I feel like that conveys the human element that I'm going for anyway.
Plays there to be made.
There in the background is Keishan Ganacha,
I'm not
one
gonna
of my
sit up here and
longtime buddies and
okay. It ain't okay.
collaborators at State.
It's not okay, man. We all own it. I'm not blaming you. Look at me. I hope it's a wake-up call.
There's a little jump cut there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Aesthetically, I was trying to go for some interesting editing techniques where
I'm gonna be able to look at that board.
there are these really nerdy post-production things called J and L cuts, where you see an image before you hear it, or you hear an image before you see it. And I feel like that helps move the story forward a little bit.
Bottom line is, everybody in this room could have been better today. And it's never been about playing hard with you guys, man. It's not.
The messages after losses
You're gonna decide that you want to be a smart
rarely get seen outside of the locker room. I mean, what does the average fan have to see after a game is over? The head coach gets interviewed and they kind of rattle off some platitudes about, we could have gotten better. There may be a couple good things that we can take away from it. But here is the real moment. And it has to do with who you're talking to. Like, if somebody's talking to press, they're just answering the questions that are being asked. They're providing a general wrap-up of the previous game. But when a coach is talking to a player or a group of players, there's there's authenticity there. They're being real. They're being honest. They're being harsh and supportive at the same time.
You can't say, hey, I want to do this in game one, and then you're half speed to get there.
So with this episode being the first game episode, I had no idea how long or how much time a game would take up. It took up a lot of time. So this last segment is only 90 seconds long because I'd almost run out of time. But I also ran out of footage. I was like, okay, how do I end this episode? I don't have a lot of stuff to work with. So we have practice footage. We have this bit that you're hearing from the preseason interview. And then I filmed some weightlifting stuff too, because to try and signify that, okay, we lost. Now we got to get better. These bites that we're hearing, these motivational, encouraging bites after a loss, I feel just hit a little bit different. They mean a lot more for what's to come. Thank y'all so much for watching today. If you have any comments or questions about what you've seen, go ahead and leave them in the comment section. If you want to help support some of the stuff that I'm making, this included, go ahead and check out the Patreon page down in the description below. Quick sales pitch: if you do sign up for Patreon and become a patron of the stuff that I'm making, you get some really cool perks. You get access to a Discord community where you can talk and collaborate with other people who love stories, and you can also pitch ideas and any questions you might have for me on there as well. Depending on the tier you choose, you can also get behind the scenes goodies, select special topics for videos beyond this commentary that I'm doing right now, and some other fun stuff. There's no pressure to join, but it really would mean a lot. If you can't swing it, no problem. Just go ahead and like and share if you enjoyed watching today. Again, thank y'all so much for watching today, and I'll see you next time.